Welcome to the Meat Company.
You're listening to From the Butcher's Block with hosts Jason Hendrick and Michael Buckley, broadcasting from the Ventura Meat Company in Ventura, California.
And welcome to From the Butcher's Block.
Yes.
I'm Jason Hendrick, the hungry man from Everybody's Hungry. You are Michael Buckley, the owner of this shop, the Ventura Meat Company. We're broadcasting live from Ventura, California with our brand new boom mics. I don't know if I should twerk or Vogue or I'm not sure.
I feel like it's a bottomless pit of little cut-ups that you can make about this, so I'm just going to try and stay away.
We could go all night. But, you know, sick as our engineer, Curtis Taylor, a.k.a. Hophead, said, went out. Every time I see him, he's got a new piece of technology in his trunk. He's starting to run out of room.
It's the challenge here.
But it benefits the show, so I'm excited. It's going to allow us to roam around the shop a little more, get up with the demos. Nick's going to be breaking down this truck for a little while. We're going to come back to him. We'll be able to actually stand to the block without a boom mic and interact with him.
Well, you know, those are sharp knives.
I know.
So I wouldn't get too close.
We have to maintain a safe perimeter.
Yes.
We'll rope it off later.
And my insurance guy would like that, actually.
We do want to send a quick shout out to our friend Kat Merrick from Totally Local VC. She's home ill tonight and unable to make it, so we're going to get her rescheduled for another broadcast where we talk about what we were hoping to hit, and that's how to get a small business up and running, what that impact means to the community. And she has a good beat on that. And with your experience, obviously, of opening this shop, it'll be a great tag team discussion.
Yeah, so let's stay away from that because I mean that.
Yeah, we're gonna get her back on later, cool. So we want to save that. We'll put that back in the coffers for another broadcast.
Right.
Which means tonight we have an open forum. Our slate just got clean.
Boy.
And I think for the first segment, what we want to do is get people up to speed what's going on in the shop.
Right.
We've been showing some video of these beef getting broken down in previous segments.
Yes.
We got some new things in the case, so give us the scoop, Michael. What's up in the shop?
Well, we just got out of Thanksgiving, and that's a big thing around here. Sell a lot of turkeys, and that takes a lot of planning and coordination. And the interesting thing is, it's all just planning and coordination until Monday.
Until that truck shows up at the back door.
Shows up, you're kind of like, well, I hope that it's exactly what I ordered. And every year, this is our third year doing it, and there's curveballs in there. You just have to roll with the punches and try and be solution oriented and things like that. So, and it's something that we take really seriously. If people are disappointed, it's that they didn't find out that they could put a turkey order in time. And excuse me, there's been conversations about you should put an ad in the paper, and I take it really, really seriously. That's
a balancing act, though, isn't it?
Right, because I don't want to take on so many that I, screw something up. Like, we've never really had a situation with the turkeys where, somebody ordered a turkey and we shrugged our shoulders. Like, if you order a turkey, you're getting a turkey. But it becomes challenging to match people up with the exact size they need, and I think we need to be more realistic about how possible that is, because Diestel, where we buy the turkeys, they've been doing this for a long time.
So they've got great metrics. They've got their processes dialed in. How many turkeys did you end up selling?
Approximately 120.
And that's a little more than what you were originally forecasting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We ended up just, as we got closer, we were getting so much phone interest and everything that it was like there were a few more on the table if we wanted to order them, and we did. So, there's a couple more than we would like to have brought in, but that's the risk reward thing. You kind of roll the dice and see what happens. But what I was getting at with the how long Diestel's been doing this, this is our third year doing business with them, and every year, and this is not bad mouthing that brand. I'm very proud to sell Diestel, because if there's one thing that is consensus, it's that, oh my gosh, that might be the best turkey I've ever had.
I've had it a couple years in a row. It's a delicious turkey.
Yeah. So, but I think I need to be more realistic about that window of, I ordered a 12-pound turkey. Why am I getting a 14-pound turkey? And it wasn't even that close this year. I mean, there were turkeys that came in listed as a 12 to 14 pound, because they list them in 2-pound increments, and it was like 12 to 14 pounder, and you look up at the weight and it's like 17.65, and you're like, Uh-oh. You know, and so then it's just a matter of mitigating, you know, all that and mitigating it being a problem. Like I said, being solution oriented. It is what it is. You know, we know who we need to take care of, and it's not a matter of passing the buck or anything like that. Like, you know, maybe this is a lesson for us to be more realistic about what those possibilities are. I mean, there's 2 decimal points on there anyway. Like, is anybody ever really going to get a 12-pound turkey? No.
Not typically.
Right.
It's
So-
not one of those things where you're coming in precise on the weight and measurement.
Right. Just the deviations, I think, are something that we need to be more clear about.
Gotcha. Well, you got through Thanksgiving with some fun turkeys.
Yeah.
You got a couple other cool things, though, that you've added to the lineup. And one of them is a direct result of your additional production in-house, where you're taking on
Yeah.
more of the labor, breaking down those carcasses.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because I heard it's very flavorful. What product's that?
Oh, the beef stock.
Yes. Look at the
Yeah.
excitement. See, I threw out that little nugget, and his eyes lit up like, boom,
Softball.
beef stock.
Yeah.
I was talking to Megan a little while ago
Yeah.
before the broadcast. She said it's really rich and delicious, and then you used it in the oxtail soup the other day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was delicious. And, you know, hey, snout the tail, right? Eat the tail. It's really good. We worked with Chef Tim to come up with a good, simple, basic, you know, maybe that's the word, base.
Okay.
You know, it's...
And you're relying on the
Right.
just for everyone's clarity, you get beef stock, you get any kind of animal stock
Yep.
by cooking down, slow cooking the bones
Yes.
and the fatty leftover bits.
That's right.
So the beef stock is coming from all these luscious bones. You can see if Nick will do a quick turn of the chuck,
Yeah,
that
show us
big
that
marrow
cross-
bone.
The other way.
Yeah, big marrow bone coming out. I mean,
That's
there's
what
so
we're
much
talking about.
flavor and nutrient coming out of there that you put a big old batch of those in a pot,
Yep.
slow cook them down, you're going to get a rich, delicious beef flavor
Nutritious.
and nutritious as well. So you're out of necessity, but also out of, you know, a desire to give your customers the best quality product.
Right.
You're starting to do some beef stock now
Yeah,
with
yeah,
all
yeah.
this carcass bone.
Really happy about it. It's I tell people, you know, pound for pound, the bones, the, you know, a lot of the organs and things, not the lean. They are pound for pound the most nutritious things that we sell, and the good thing is they're all in abundance. So, you know, give it a shot. I think you'll find it's superior than any stock you can buy on the shelf somewhere. You know, if for nothing else, I mean, it was made, you know, last Thursday,
Okay.
I think, and you know, no artificial ingredients. I think there are some organic beef stocks out there, and you know, the organic label feels all warm and fuzzy, but you turn the label over and it's like, what is all this stuff doing in my beef stock? You know, it doesn't have to be that laundry list of ingredients, but there again, we start to find out the real beauty of doing a small batch.
Okay.
Because you don't have to have it last 6 months sitting on the shelf somewhere. It can't possibly do that. So we can leave out a lot of, you know, weird ingredients.
Sure, the preservatives. Now, I want to get into a couple applications with the beef stock,
Yeah.
but we got a question in from the audience wanting to know about oxtail
Are
soup.
you making that up?
I'm not making that up. We did have someone text in a question about what oxtail soup is.
Sure.
An oxtail, for one, just before we get to the soup part, is beef tail. And,
Yep.
you know, ox is it's kind of an, I don't want to say ancient, but it's an outdated focus. I mean, there
Sure.
are countries, I'm sure, that still use ox, but in the United States, oxtail is going to refer to beef tails.
Yes.
And it really is
I don't
a
know anybody growing.
legacy, as Wikipedia, just to use their terminology, ox in the context is a legacy of nomenclature. So write that down. But it really refers to, you know, what was used hundreds of years ago. As ox were pretty prevalent. Now we're getting the tail in from these carcasses you're bringing
Yeah.
in. So we're using oxtail soup, largely creating that broth or a great beef stock to start with. You're adding in some oxtail,
Yes.
which doesn't have a ton of meat on it, but it's got some nice opportunity there for little bits of flavor and texture.
I think the key word is soup.
Yeah, I mean, you want a beautiful, rich, velvety, luscious beef flavor in that broth.
There's a few cross sections on the, on an oxtail when you get it cut into the cross section that have, a wealth of lean on them, but not abundantly. It's the flavor of the soup that you're going for, and it just doesn't taste like any other, bone broth or, stew.
And if anyone caught that phrase, too, you say a wealth of lean. When the lean you're referencing is the muscle structure.
Right.
It's the
It's
meat.
all that red stuff.
Yeah, it's all that red stuff. It's the meat. So we don't want to lose sight of that.
Right.
So that's oxtail soup. Again, you can put all kinds of cool stuff in it. You can put green onions and celery and carrots. You can put
Simple.
simple. The base of it is the tails of the cow with a little bit of meat and great rich flavor coming out of those bones, and a luscious beef stock.
And just let it go. And I think, we're busy here, and it was super easy for me to just plug my crock pot in, and we had a late lunch, and it was super delicious, and the shop smelled great. And
that's a big thing. We've come into the shop in the past when you've been cooking some stuff, and I think that's a marketing tool that's underutilized. If you could get that smell to waft out the doorway a little bit.
It's like Cinnabon, Like if there's a Cinnabon in a mall, it takes you about 3 seconds to realize it.
And the cookie places too. I mean, that's why they've got those specific establishments near the doorway, near the entrances of the malls.
Right.
'Cause you walk in and you're like, maybe I'll go buy a cookie because I can smell it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have some more oxtail soup aromas coming through the doorway later.
Sure. Well, I think it's delicious, and I think it's just one of those things. It sounds outgoing. It's so not outgoing. It's just a stew. It's just a soup.
So let's get back to the beef stock for a second then. Give us some applications that you've seen or that you use personally with beef stock.
It's predominantly, crock pot oriented stuff. Just, because, when you're, let's use that verb, stewing, that's a very broad word. You can use it for a lot of different things. That's basically what you're doing, is you're stewing things, and it just depends on, are you using a lot of lean? Are you using bones? So anything that you're going to stick in your crock pot for a little while, you got to give it some liquid, particularly if it's lean in nature. You could do water, but you're not going to have as much flavor as if, you used a broth or used a stock or something like that. So it's mostly used for those slow cooking applications when you're using a lean piece of meat.
Sure. My first vision when I came into the shop and saw that batch of beef stock was a slow reduction, like you said, on a really lean piece of meat. This chuck could be used in a couple different sections of it.
Yeah.
Or just not the flat meat. What do we have the flat iron?
Flat iron steaks,
would be awesome until we get some good chunks out of there.
That out of there. That's that big piece hanging down.
And then I want to cook that down real slow with some homemade egg noodles and maybe a little caramelized onion. Just make a great, like almost a stroganoff.
Right.
Minus the cream base. So you just toss those egg noodles with some of that real slow cooked rich beef, some caramelized onions, a tasty beer. And now with the chilly weather, I mean, we could go porter or stout. And I think I got a meal.
Let's not tiptoe around, though, the nutritional benefits of what's going on. I mean, you bring up the marrow. I think, if you really want to get a sense of instinct, we need to rely on our instincts and things like that.
I like your analogy you usually toss out there when we talk about instincts and you equate to wild animals like lions or dogs.
Yes.
And
I think dogs kind of enjoy chewing on bones, but
it's
gold in them.
One part recreation, more parts instinct nutrition.
Come on. There are birds, scavenger birds, that pick bones up and fly over rock patches and drop the bones so that they can go down and scoop the marrow out. That's a pretty big hoop to jump through if it just tastes good.
I often seek out things that taste good, but also I know are going to be good for my body.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's a. I mean, it is a correlation, but I think it means something. You know, like real satiation. You know, really being full. Like,
That's you're
just
really
really full when you eat a big thing of Chinese food.
Just
No,
to
you're
slide
not.
across
That's
the
why you
cusp
go back
of
and
a controversial
5
topic
minutes.
we've, I don't know, debated however many times. Satiation is a great word to hinge on. How many times have we eaten, commercial or Americanized Chinese or some fast food,
You're so
something,
careful with your words. I love it.
chips and this. I love my snacks, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But all these things that are in a convenience store at an AM, PM,
Yep.
and an hour later, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually still hungry.
Right.
It was great for that instant, but it didn't do anything for your body. It
There's
tasted
no-
awesome, but it didn't feel awesome.
Well, the empty calories. People use that. What does that mean? Yeah, you ate a bunch of stuff, but you didn't really get any nutrients, and that's why, the real irony of something like fat, is everybody tries to avoid it, but you want to eat less. Fat. It's pretty
Well,
satiating.
All right, so that's my softball for tonight.
Yeah.
Talking about fat, one of the other byproducts of all this carcass work that you've been doing in-house is beef fat.
Yeah.
And you've got some ground beef fat in the case, very
Yeah.
similar to ground bacon and
Yep.
other kind of lubricants and bases for cooking. I mean,
Yeah.
when you want to saute, so tell us.
The biggest reason that's in the case is to sell it to people who are interested in rendering it for their own purposes.
Okay.
There's nothing stopping you from just taking a few flakes of that, frying your eggs up in it. You're gonna get better results if you buy a few pounds and you render it down yourself. And rendering beef fat into tallow is not a complicated process. It's just you can do it in your crock pot.
And we've talked about beef tallow. We did the fats class here,
Yeah.
and when we use the word tallow, it's TALLOW. It's rendered beef or mutton fat, typically processed from suet. And suet, where on the animal is the suet from?
Mostly, and that's just the kidney fat.
Okay.
And there's no real way to describe it other than if you get your hands on it, it is just dense. It's the densest fat that you can get your hands on. I mean, you could take a chunk of it and slam it against the table, and it's not
Just beat it down.
Not going to do anything. It's not nearly as malleable as a lot of the other fat on the cow. I mean, at room temperature, some of the fat will start to just melt right there. The suet is not going to do that. It's very rigid, but it's very pure. There's no lean on it. It's just very convenient
And there's
in that regard.
two ways, really, when we talk about rendering fat, especially the beef fat in this case, from the suet and just all these luscious bits that are on the edges into the tallow, and that's a wet method and a dry method.
Yeah, right.
They're pretty similar.
They are similar.
You're gonna slowly put those down. I mean, the dry method is you could use a crock pot. You put those big hunks of beef fat into the crock pot. You put it at a low temperature, let it slowly start to melt and render down into a liquid form. And there's a certain level of filtering that can be done. You can run a little metal screen through it, or cheesecloth. Or there's the wet method, and very similar. You're gonna add a little bit of water to help that heating process kick in faster. And that's really what it comes down to, is timing.
Right.
Now, how much time do you want to spend rendering this beef fat into the tallow? But once it's rendered, I mean, you've got a great product to cook with for how long? At least a few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, but you can reuse it. You can fry with it. It's really versatile.
If it's rich enough, you could spread that shit on toast.
You could absolutely do that, and you wouldn't have to dare me.
I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah. It's really versatile. It's really nutritious, and it's a conversation we have a lot, and I wish we could have it more often. To be honest with you, just about the fat content of something like our ground beef, and we would really be selling this product short if we made 95.5 ground beef, and that's 95% lean, 5% fat, or even 90-10, or the real nutrient content is in the fat. That's undeniable. So, grass-fed beef, as far as I'm concerned, if you're buying it, I mean, there are lean cuts on there that need to be consumed. New York strip is relatively lean. It's a delicious steak. But don't shy away from the fat. There is enough of it to go around, especially, in a subcutaneous context. There's plenty of big chunks of fat that have to be consumed in some shape, form, or fashion, and we can't put all of it into the ground beef.
No, I mean, because at some point, the ground beef, you want to maintain consistency with your product and structure as well. So
yeah, if you're making a burger, I mean, 50-50, I don't think would hold. I think it would just fall to pieces.
Getting into the holiday.
I would eat it.
You would eat it, but it may not hold together.
It's just not going to hold together.
We're getting into Christmas time. We're, 13 days from Christmas.
Yes.
This year is flying by. Are there any other cool things you're going to have in the case prepping for the holiday?
We'll put some ideas out there. We'll tie some crown roasts and just to give people an idea of what it is that we can do.
Should we do a shameless self-plug right there?
Yeah.
Why not?
I think I just did.
Yeah, so we're going to have crown roast in the shop for the
the
general
crown
public.
Roast,
But also next Thursday, we're going to be doing the holiday edition of our First Cut series where we're probably, this may be an insider tip at this point, but we're probably going to do a pork crown roast.
Probably.
And we're going to demonstrate how to make that happen. So you come in and get your pork roast. We'll show you how to.
Seriously, pork
for
Christmas.
It's delicious.
It's a thing.
It is a thing. So we'll probably do that. But I want to ask about an animal that I've been debating, and I got a look from my wife the other day when I brought it up. What about goose?
Yeah.
Can you get goose?
Absolutely. I
mean,
mean, I don't have really any experience cooking with geese. They're readily available. It's a supply and demand thing. There's not a lot of demand for it throughout most of the year. But come Christmas time, it's the same thing as with turkey. They know when to really get the fresh product in the market, and it's there, readily available.
I had a buddy the other day attempt duck and was disappointed with his attempt. Yeah, it didn't come out very well. I think he cooked it for too long based on the description of the story. But also, he was discouraged by the ratio of bone to meat. The breasts in the duck were smaller than expected, and he didn't get as much yield as he wanted. Do you have any perspective on that in regards to the goose?
I would just think, just thinking about the duck, it's these animals all, they have different fat contents than poultry that you might be used to cooking. And that's just always something to consider. Something like duck is incredibly fat. So it's just something to keep in mind. The fat content, that changes everything, from a chicken to a turkey to a goose to a duck.
Well, and as we've
to a
talked time and
pheasant.
time again, whether it's a fowl, pork, beef, lamb, doesn't matter.
Right.
The fat content on the animal dictates the flavor and the moisture in the meat
Also
when you're
the cooking approach.
Yeah.
It just a lot of different things. And, the real texture of the skin, like a pheasant is a cold climate bird. So it's going to have a tougher skin, but that can really hold in moisture and things like that. So it's just know as much as you can about what makes that particular fowl or what have you different from what you're probably used to roasting in your oven, which is chicken.
Which you can't go wrong with chicken, though. We just roasted your chicken yesterday, and those birds are coming in kind of big right now.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah.
3 pounds.
It felt a little bigger than normal,
Right.
but it was delicious. We
It's funny we say big. It's like 3 pounds.
Well, I mean, the yield, as we talked about,
Right.
though, the yield on that chicken versus some of the other fowl is pretty remarkable, even for a, kind of field, humanely treated bird that's getting a fairly healthy, natural diet.
Mm-hmm.
The breakdown of what we had, simple olive oil rub, a little salt and pepper,
Yes.
shove the cavity full of carrots and onions,
Mm-hmm.
and roasted that bad boy for 45, 50 minutes. It was moist. The skin was crispy and salty. We do a chicken a week.
Yeah.
And
And why not?
the same premise and the techniques of chicken can be translated to most of those birds. You may have to adjust the time in the oven,
That's
the
really what it's
temperature,
about.
but the anatomy is the same. Carving it is similar. You can do some marinades and preps the same way.
That's really what it's about. It's just about those little nuances. To my knowledge, you would want to cook all of them to 165 degrees. I don't think you want to eat rare.
That's a pretty
goose.
kind of blanket target for
Just
fowl.
make sure you do that. And the approach on how to get there is what's different.
And just for your safety tip, make sure it's in the thickest part of the thigh, or in my opinion, I prefer the and part, the thickest part of the breast as well. I take two temperatures.
All right.
I hit the thigh and I hit the breast because the thigh gives a little more generosity. It's a little more forgiving. If you're too hot on the breast, that stuff will dry out in a second. So
Yes.
I like to test both areas. Be delicate in where you're placing it.
Don't overcook the breast.
Don't overcook the breast. And if you're going to be displaying the
Don't do
chicken before carving to your guests, try to tuck that thermometer up underneath as you're approaching the breast area so that you're not jamming a thermometer right in the middle of the beautiful display.
Exactly.
We're kind of bouncing around topics tonight. I'm having fun with it.
Yes.
One thing I want to talk about
Sure.
is a great pairing. Right now we're drinking I'm not afraid to say, a little Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. It's a
delicious.
great holiday beer. It's a beautiful daily drink. This beer could stand up to any of those meats that we talked about because it's just a quality, low spice, holiday focus. Any one of those gamier meats is going to go well. The rich, meaty, irony texture and flavor of beef is going to go great. But if you get a really beautifully seasoned chicken,
Yes.
a little salt crust,
Do you think this would go good with chicken?
I think it would.
All
Because
right.
I think there's just enough deep color and maltiness, a little sweetness, to highlight some of that chicken sweet fattiness. The juice that comes out of that bird is going to be great, especially those darker areas, the thighs and the drumsticks. I think this would be a good beer for that.
Totally agree.
So what I'd like to do, I want to continue to cleanse my palate while we take a few minute break.
Well,
We'll come back, and we're going to bounce around again because I've got 3 topics that you and I talked about ahead of schedule in front of the broadcast that are going to throw people a little bit, but we know we want to get in some fun information about them. And one of them is about the potential sriracha epidemic, the decline of sriracha. Yeah, tear in our eye. Sriracha may be on the outs. So when we come back,
we need to have a telethon with like Bon Jovi or something. Come on.
we may have to
Fix this.
stock your closets. When we come back, we're going to talk about that and a few other cool things. So from the Butcher's Block here at the Ventura Meat Company, Ventura, California, we'll see you in a few minutes.
Yes.